our weekly listeners know that I am a self confessed Elon Musk fanboy. And I think I may have found a kindred spirit here. His name is Dennis Kneale, and he has written a book called The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. Dennis, welcome to The Truth.
Thanks so much, John, and I appreciate your time. I mean, this book came out late January, but was my timing perfect? Or does it turn out my timing was absolutely terrible because half the country now has been turned against this man, and I'm still trying to figure out why they're so angry at him.
I challenge your statement that half the country feels that way. 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. I think Musk has got at least 76 million of those 77 as
Yeah.
fans. But I get your point. I mean, it is a small minority that's making a lot of noise, I believe. And I also think, and we've got some proof actually, that they're being paid to protest and
Yes.
engage in the kind of vandalism they have. Why is our DOJ letting them get away with it? Not the people that are doing the violence, because they are arresting some of them and prosecuting them. But why don't we trace the money back up to the head of the snake and go after those people? Is what I don't understand.
Yeah. Elon Musk has said publicly on X that something like five different Democrat groups funded by through Act Blue, that Democrat kind of allegedly crooked fundraising organization, are responsible for orchestrating all this. And I've been thinking, what is the goal here? And what the real goal here is.
Well, I
Uh,
share your question. I mean, who would not want to stop economic waste when we are
yeah,
literally taking hundreds of thousands and millions and trillion dollars, according to Musk, and basically flushing it down the commode? Who would be opposed stopping that? I don't get
yeah,
it.
exactly. Except those whose ox is gored by the cuts because they were gaining from it. I mean, there are reports that,
Yeah.
my gosh, that Chelsea Clinton got millions of dollars in USAID money and built a home with it in Haiti or something. I mean, there's just crazy stuff. But what they're really
And
doing
there's
here,
the
John,
answer. They're all in on it.
right? But they want to scare Congress. They want to scare Republicans especially and get them to refuse to vote in favor of these cuts. It turns out that legally only Congress can spend money, initiate it, and only Congress can cut it. So these guys can come on and give advice, they can try to redirect, but actual cuts have to be adopted by Congress. And will they be too terrified to do it because they see these astroturf protests that aren't really grassroots protests at all?
Well, I do want to ask you, and I think that you have a particular vantage point. You've been behind the curtain. You've been at CNBC as an anchor. You were on the Fox Business Network, and you were a senior editor at the Wall Street Journal and a managing editor at Forbes. How is it that the media seems to have become the enablers of these lunatic leftists? I call
Yeah.
CNBC, no disrespect intended to you, but I call it CNBS because I don't believe a word they say half the time.
Well,
Even
see,
and when they talk about Tesla, it's always about Elon this and Elon that, rather than the Model Y being the best-selling car in the world,
yeah, outselling brands that have been around for 100 years,
for sure.
and selling not because it's an electric car and I'm green, but because it's a great car.
I
You know,
have one. I love it, but
I don't recognize the media anymore. I was a reporter and editor for more than 30 years, and we at least tried to hide our bias,
do you
our
think it
truth.
has anything to do with the
They don't
fact
try to
that
hide it anymore.
Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Tesla's marketing strategy is largely word of mouth? They do not spend a dollar on advertising, yet Ford, GM, and Stellantis spend untold amounts of money advertising on CNBS
You
and
know,
these other mainstream media outlets.
that has great influence at the high, senior boss level, I'm sure. But when I was a reporter, when I was an anchor on air, I never really thought about anything to that level. This is instead what our moms told us, that you're judged by the company you keep. This is because Trump's a bad man. We hate Trump. Musk helped Trump, therefore we have to hate Musk. It's just, Trump broke the media. He made them crazy. The media keep thinking that Trump is the reason they have lost so much credibility. The media are the reason they have lost so much credibility.
And I don't think they've still figured it out yet. I mean, they continue to double down and keep doing the same things that caused them to lose half their viewership.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that of all the people in America, that Donald Trump is probably the single most fond of Elon Musk. And the reason I say that is, have you noticed in the last 6 weeks, 2 months, that that Musk has become the lightning rod, and that they're not going after Trump for the first time in
Yeah, I
8
don't know if
years?
that was strategically intended, but that sure did happen, didn't it? And Trump's got a. I wonder if any part of President Trump misses the negative attention and being the lightning rod. What do you think? Or is he relieved to have Elon kind of siphon it off?
I think he's relieved as long as it's fairly short term. And Musk
Right.
says that he's going to leave at the end of May when his temporary work permit expires for the federal government, but he'll remain on as a consultant. So tell us about the genius of Elon Musk. What inspired you to write the book, and where are you coming from?
So I have been fascinated with this guy since I was an anchor at Fox Business. And outside my office, I hear these two young, gorgeous women producers, because everyone who works in television is gorgeous, except for the guys. And they're talking about
Thank you
she's got a
very much. I
girlfriend.
got that.
She's got this girlfriend who's on a yacht with this billionaire in Greece, and she's having a great time. And I said, "Who is it?" And she says, "Elon Musk." "Who's that?" And I thought it sounded like a men's cologne. And she said, "Well, that's this guy who does Tesla." And that's when I started tracking him and becoming fascinated with him. Then he bought X, and my gosh, he saved the First Amendment in this country and free expression. It's the only place in the world left that has it, and X, the platform, will help do that. So luckily, I got a call from a brilliantly talented editor at HarperCollins named Eric Nelson, who said, "Hey, man, seems to me a smart business writer could do a management book." And there's this thing I was told years ago, John, before I'd ever written a book. I've now written 4 or helped write 3 others. And someone told me, "You know what? If you think you want to write a book on something, you take the weekend and you do a 10,000 page proposal. You do, chapters, the flow. If you don't end up getting that proposal done, you don't want to write this book." Well, this came to me like it was a voice from the heavens. I suddenly came up with 11 lessons of Elon, 1 per chapter, that explain his success and which we can borrow to build a better life for ourselves. And so, you can see what's going on at Doge. Involves lessons 2, 3, and 4. Lesson 2 says reduce, 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 cut back everything. Elon cuts back everywhere except women and children, right? He has 10,000 moving parts in a Tesla. A Ford has 40,000. Rule 3 says the highest nail gets pounded down first. So put on a helmet, man. Don't run away from that controversy and criticism. Welcome it. Elon does that. And rule 4 says tease your critics and torture your enemies. And Elon, punches back hard. Short sellers. A lot of CEOs want to ignore them, and that they come after your company, and they don't fight because they don't want to kind of give them too much attention. Elon singles them out, publicly feuds with them and takes them on. And short sellers have lost more than $60 billion betting against Tesla stock over the past recent years.
Well, I have watched Tesla for 10 years, and I've been an investor for the last 8. And
Wow.
it's my second largest holding. It was my largest holding until Nvidia went on its run. So I'm pretty happy these days. But I don't even think that we've seen the beginning of what Tesla is going to accomplish. To wit, there is full self-driving that is at the goal line to be approved by regulators. I think it's going to change the way we live. It has the potential of eliminating 45,000 auto fatalities just in this country alone. What if we just are able to cut them in half because of autopilot and full self-driving?
Yeah.
Then he's got the robo-taxi that is predicted to be worth $1 trillion in market cap. It has the potential to put Uber and Lyft out of business. The robo-taxi is going to cost $1.75 a mile. Uber and Lyft both are at $6 a mile because they've got a driver that's going to be eliminated. And then we've got the Optimus robot that is going to perform menial, repetitive, and dangerous tasks. I want to be the first beta tester.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the thing is, most other great innovators of in America, Einstein, Edison, Steve Jobs, they were good at one thing. How many CEOs have we seen who are good at this many different companies all at once, right? And they seem so disparate and unrelated, and yet, John, there's a synergy there that really works. I mean, think about this, okay? So he's got these cars that drive along, and they recently, a couple of years ago, made a switch from lines of code that predict, oh, when you come to this stop sign, you've got to either turn right or left, to instead be vision based. So it's learning from the vision. Well, all of that data comes into some central resource, right? The Optimus robot, they're seeing stuff in the same way the car does, and they're collecting data, right? And then you've got his AI engine, X.AI, is able to be on X, his other platform, and read 6,000 messages per second. And the way AI learns, they call it artificial intelligence. It's just based on our intelligence. It reads what we wrote. And so he's got that. But one day, and he's got that brain chip. It's now in a third patient, a Lou Gehrig's disease patient. And I read a tweet the other day. It said, hey, I lost my ability to speak, and I'm now writing to you with the new brain chip in my head. And someday he's going to be able to take an arm from an Olympus robot, attach it to an amputee with a brain chip from the other company, and he'll be able to operate the arm from the robot. So
Yeah,
all of this stuff
Neuralink, he
together
calls it.
in amazing ways.
I think it is absolutely fascinating, and I am so grateful to be alive in this period of time. If he can do with Doge what he's done with Tesla, Neuralink, the Boring Company, XAI, we're going to be very fortunate to have had his involvement. Do you think they're going to allow him to do the job that he's trying to perform?
The biggest worry I have now is that the Republicans are weak. The Republicans themselves don't like Trump because it's his party and not theirs anymore. And I question whether Republicans will have the courage to approve these cuts and embed them so that they recur. That 160 billion that Doge is at so far, over 10 years, the way they usually do it in congressional budgeting, that's 1.6 trillion, sure, but he wants to take out $1 trillion a year in spending. Now it's only a 14% cut, but it's Congress that has to make them permanent and has to adopt them by law. Will they really do it? Now, just yesterday, luckily, Republicans voted down Rand Paul's proposal, a fellow Republican, to rein in Trump's tariff powers and take them away. And luckily, this was just defeated. So maybe the Republicans will show some backbone and actually impose these cuts and make them law.
Now
I
you're
hope
saying
so.
Rand Paul introduced that bill to cut back Trump's
Yes,
power? Rand
yes,
Paul? He would be
yes,
the
Rand
least likely
Paul.
person I would think that would do that.
Yes, unless I'm entirely wrong, which has been known to happen. No, it's Rand Paul, a guy who's a hero of the Republican Party most times, and yet he came out and did this. And I
Now
think
he is the champion in the Senate for reducing federal spending.
right.
I mean, I think the tariffs have an opportunity truly to usher in the golden age because, I mean, that is such a involved conversation, and I've been a student of economics my entire adult life. We just had someone on from the Mises Institute actually that we talked at great length to about this. But if you look at the fact that tariffs are influencing companies to relocate their manufacturing to the United States, I just read this morning that the number is now up to 7 trillion of brand new investment. And there's a lot of decoupling that's going to take place between us and China through the course of this new ushering in of returning to the U.S. for manufacturing. Think about the tens of thousands of jobs that is going to create. It is going to solve our unemployment problem, and it will create enough new tax revenue that we won't miss the $1 trillion of elimination of fraud, waste, and abuse that Musk says he's going to eliminate from the federal budget. So it just all makes such perfect sense to me. I can't understand why any living person with a brain would not embrace those things.
Well, for 40 years, the U.S. has allowed itself, because we were the big daddy to the world, to be ripped off in trade. And let's help those poorer nations. Sure, they can charge our 35% on our products coming into their land, but we'll only charge 2% on their products. I think what's really the most important point of the whole tariff war, it comes down to just two gunfighters, the U.S. versus China. We don't want to move factories here that make paper clips. All right. There's no way we'll ever make them cheap enough. But we do want MRI scanners and some of the most sophisticated equipment in the world to be made here instead of elsewhere. Right. That would be a really good thing to have. It's just that China is the biggest problem. And if we can move paperclip factories out of China and move them to India, move them to Vietnam, move them to Cambodia, we should not be doing so much business with China. Every year, I think the figure is we give them $400 billion more per year than they give us buying stuff from us.
I think that's the right number.
And then they take that money and they buy U.S. government bonds. So we're then borrowing money to pay interest on the bonds that they bought with our money. That is just terrible. China wants to
and what we end up doing is financing the development of their military and navy.
Exactly. And they have sonic missiles and we don't.
Yeah.
Sonic missiles. Yeah, exactly.
I put everybody in one bucket over here, the EU, our traditional trading partners, and then I put China in a separate department because it is my considered opinion that we are at war with China. And I literally mean we are at war with China. They're moving in on Taiwan. Trump has answered and said, fine, you move on Taiwan, we're taking Greenland, and we're kicking you out of the Panama Canal. They have sent 150,000 military fit men into this country across the southern border with the footnote that nobody leaves or enters China without the full knowledge and consent of the CCP. They've also floated military spy balloons over our country and lingered over our most sensitive nuclear bases, only to be courageously shot down over the Atlantic after the mission was completed, by the way. Thank you, Joe Biden.
With a $6 million missile or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you look at the amount of fentanyl that is flooded over our southern border. I think it is intentional. I think it is designed to destabilize and split this country so that they can just slip over in here and take us over. So I agree. MRI machines are good. Pharmaceuticals are even better. 90% of our drugs are manufactured in China. That's got to come to an end.
We got to bring that back. The first thing China did during COVID was threaten us that they're not going to give us Tylenol. They're not going to give us drugs if we upset them by calling this the Wuhan flu, which is exactly what it was. China keeps a police department in New York City.
There's 6 of them across America. Two in Manhattan, 1 in Houston, 2 in LA. I don't know what the others are, but it's insanity.
Yeah, insanity. And they would freak out if we ever did that to them. If we ever did any of these things to them that they're doing to us. China for 20 years has demanded, we got to see your tech and we get to own part of your company if you want to come here and operate. Only in Trump's first term did China agree to stop doing that. And then the deal fell apart after Biden was sadly, quote, elected.
Well, and don't forget about the hundred thousands of acres of farmland that China's bought surrounding our military bases. So
and the millions in aid to universities. Why did no one ever rein this in? And it's because we want to feed at the trough, and we keep seeing those 1.6 billion consumers as if we're going to sell to them, and it's never really happened.
Well, I think Trump gets it, and I think that the tariffs is the first tool in his arsenal to go after China. And I don't think that we're going to be as malleable where China is concerned as we might be with the EU. I think that this is just my own paradigm, and I could be mistaken, but I think a lot of these trade practices with the EU were probably put in place after World War II when we were intentionally working to help rebuild Europe, and they've just sort of stuck around. Well, today, the EU has a larger population than we do, with a roughly equivalent GDP. Why the hell do they need a break on trade? Why can Germany sell us BMWs with a 2.5% tariff and we sell them a Ford and they tax it at 10%? Help me understand how that makes any sense in 2025.
It is 2 things, right? It's the arrogance of the U.S. feeling like, well, we can take that imbalance in tariffs like that. Just the arrogance that will outgrow any problem. But then the second thing is just the torpid. What's the right word? Where they just sit around. Once you start to spend in government, it never goes away. It just keeps. Look at the education department. It started in 1979. It never went away. I mean, if we can manage to cut any government spending at all, it's amazing, because that's not what government ever does. It just keeps taking more and more of our money, and
And I
and
don't
I
mind them taking my money. What I mind is them wasting my money and spending it on scientific experiments to change the gender of a rat in a
yeah.
laboratory. That is, I'm not interested. Sorry. And I'm not interested in teaching foreign journalists the proper use of pronouns and the other god awful, just ridiculous stuff that they spent money on. And it is just so arrogant and so disrespectful to hardworking, honest, tax-paying American patriots who are willing to pay ungodly amounts of tax to have a free society where our safety is protected. And that's pretty much all I care about. Just
Yeah,
just do that for me, and I'll take care of the rest for me.
I'm with you. Second it.
So I got to ask you, when you were talking about doing that pitch over the weekend, you would never go to Chat GPT or Grok to help write that, would you?
You wouldn't then, but now you should, and now you do, because and now Grok is it. I love Grok, and I think it's going to outpace the rest of the engines because it is able to read those 6,000 posts per second on X, which the others can't do unless they come in and pay some kind of money or something. But I forgot where I was going with there, John. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I know it's in this new millennium, it's silly to think this way, but it almost feels like cheating to me. I mean, I think that if I were
Yeah.
ever to have used Grok in college, they would have booted me out for plagiarism.
There are
Yet it's,
debates about that. I
yeah.
mean, you got to surf the wave that otherwise would crush you. Here's the one thing though. I just feel like AI is never going to be as good at writing as I am. I've been doing it for thousands of stories. And so, sure, you might do it to shortcut and get it started. And it's great for research. It's unbelievable. I mean, Google, you say, I want to know about tariffs, and it gives you a list of articles, and you have to inspect each one and assemble it. Grok goes out and assembles it for you. So does Perplexity. There's some bias in those engines, of course. I think Grok is the purest,
Well, they
smartest
say
thing to go after.
Grok leans a little right and ChatGPT leans a little left. The way I've resolved it in my own mind is that I'm going to use them for the research, and then I'll do the writing myself based on the research that I've gathered.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's been a fascinating conversation. I so appreciate your coming on today. Tease your critics and crucify your enemies. That's one that I had not heard. I wrote it down, and I'm going to start continuing to live my life by that mantra. And I'm also going to go get your book. Tell us where we find it.
It's on Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, and Amazon, of course. And the Newsmax network is one of the only major media outlets to really get behind this book and support it, because I have not been on Fox Business. I have not been on CNBC, even though I was an anchor at both places. I think CNBC, of course, might be reluctant to praise Elon Musk, but Newsmax has really been promoting the book, and they even offered it with a special free offer. And do you know, I went from 118,000 way down on that Amazon list up to 800, baby, just because of Newsmax's help last week,
That
because
is
they got these
wonderful.
algorithms, all sales within 1 hour or something. But it did not make the bestseller list yet, and I thought it would, because Elon Musk is one of the most fascinating figures of our time. And I urge you all out there to buy it in support of Elon. This guy deserves our support and defense.
Well, I'm going to get the book. It's called The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. It's authored by our guest today, Dennis Kneale. He is a former journalist, obviously a brilliant guy, and a good writer. So I can't wait to get the book. And again, I just appreciate you coming on so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, Dennis.
Have a glorious weekend, sir. Thanks so much for your time, John.
My pleasure.